morning, everybody. Episode 53 of Two FMA-Nerds talking about stuff. It's a little early here in Homer, Alaska, but hey, it's great. I have lots of coffee. We're going to have a great time. Today, I have a stunt actress. This will be my second stunt actress on the show, and let me tell you, I love talking to stunt people because they bring a really cool energy to the FMA community. We'll talk more about that. So, my guest today is Giedre Jackyte. We'll see how that goes, but she'll definitely correct me on that. But in the meantime, here we go, and yeah, let's get this started. Good morning or good afternoon on your end.
Yeah, good morning to you, and I guess good afternoon to people, in this part of the world.
Yeah.
It's 4 p.m. in London at the moment. So first of all, thank you, Chris, for having me on the show. I'm super, super excited, and I always love talking to people from FMA community. It's always such a pleasure.
Awesome. So, the general plan today, I mean, I normally don't have a plan, but the way it works out is I'm thinking about doing a life story and then your FMA journey, and then we'll kind of go from there. It sound like a good plan for you this morning?
Yeah, definitely. I guess it depends how much time do we have because my life story is long, but I'll try to keep it short.
I mean, honestly, I like human stories because my thought process with this show is if you're an FMAer, you should already know your history in FMA, and there's a lot of the features of the old men and the manongs that we know, but the next generation or the current generation and who they are and what they're doing is kind of what I'm after. Because I mean, we could debate Ingalls 1 and 2 and the Anyongs, the Anyos, and everything else, but like really, it's the people that I find interesting. So yeah, with that, go as deep as you want or shallow as you want when it comes to your life story. But yeah.
All right, thank you. I guess so I'll start from the very beginning. So I'm originally from Lithuania. I grew up in a very small town. It's called Kazlu Ruda. It's very interesting because since I was young, I always felt like, oh, I don't want to live in a village pretty much. I always felt like, oh, I used to watch movies and I used to always dream like one day when I'll be old enough, I'm going to move to a big city. I always thought of America, but life kind of worked in a different way. And here I am in London. But me and my dad, my dad used to watch a lot of action films, like those classic Van Damme, Stallone, and Jackie Chan. And I used to watch it with my dad. So that used to be kind of the time, it's like dad and daughter time. And I just loved all the action, especially Jackie Chan. And so I think when I was around 10 years old, I was thinking, I got a bit obsessed and I was like, I want to learn martial arts. And because I was from a small countryside, there wasn't much options. And I was lucky that probably within like half a year or a year, there was a new karate club opened. And I was like, okay, that's it. This is it. I went to the karate club. So I did karate kyokushin for quite a few years. I also competed in youth nationals. And I really enjoyed the training. My sensei was quite tough. I think that's part of being, is post-Soviet Union country, so that the training is tough. And I remember one time I went to school and I was wearing like this, like the short sleeve top, and I had like my bruises. Kyokushin is tough, right? And I had these bruises all over my arms, and I don't know, there's something happened. I'm like, oh, I'm not sure if I want to do this anymore. And then I remember that same day I went home, and I watched this music video. Back then we didn't really have MTV. So there was like a different, like kind of Russian version of like music videos. And I saw these girls dancing and I was like, oh, wow, I think this is what I want to do. And then literally all of a sudden I switched from karate kyokushin to dance. And my coach, my sensei, he was like, oh, you sure don't want to do it? And I don't know, something happened, that passion just went. And I put all my energy into dancing, which I guess everything happens for a reason, as they say. Because of dance, I decided to move to London. So, at my last year in school, I took exams in like chemistry, biology, because I was good in school. So I was supposed to kind of go that medical route. But I always had this passion in performing. And but there was no one around me who actually made a career out of dancing. And my drama teacher in the last year, she asked me to choreograph a dance performance for like this national competition, which was I was really excited to do, and it was like my last year. And the night before, I think I asked her, "Oh, I really want to do dance. What do you think I should do?" You know, when you're young, you're kind of asking for people's advice. And she's like, "I know you want to do this, but to kind of sustain your life, I think it'll be better if you kind of choose this traditional way." And I remember I was walking back home, I was crying because this is not the answer I wanted. You know, I was like 18. And then we had this premiere of the show, and then we got very good reviews. And the judge, like on stage, they asked who choreographed this thing. And that was me. Of course, a drama teacher was overlooking in terms of like acting. I did that dance choreography. And after the show, she said, "Oh, you should go and dance with this very famous woman," who was like my hero back then. And my drama teacher came up to me and she said, "I'm really sorry, Giedre, I was wrong. I think you should go and follow your passion." And that kind of gave me courage. And I remember I came to my mom and I said, "I'm not going to apply to any university because I want to study dance. Give me 1 year. If I'm going to go to London, if I'm going to get into university, this is what I'm meant to do in my life." Of course, my mom was in complete shock, as every mother would. I was like, "Yes, I have everything figured out." Da, da, da. I had nothing figured out. I actually didn't have no job. My English wasn't that great. I mean, I was learning in school, but it wasn't that great. I couldn't understand people properly when I came to UK. And I literally had like 300 pounds with me when I arrived. A friend's friend picked me up from the airport. I stayed with her family for like almost a week. And I was lucky because I found a job. My first job here was working in a chocolate factory, actually. So for the yeah, and so for the first year, I was working in the factory, like waking up 5 a.m., saving all the money, and after the work, I would go to all this dance class you can think of, like ballet, contemporary. Just wanted to learn as much as I can from like the best in the industry. And I was lucky that within the year, I got into university. Because for me, to be honest, there was no other option. I'm like, no matter what, I have to get into university because I'm not coming back home into that countryside. This is it. And so, yes, I was lucky I got in. And it was really tough because, of course, the other girls were like, they more experienced than me. They had like ballet classes since they were like 5, 6. So I had a lot of to catch up, but I was working super hard. I used to be there before the first one, before the classes start, and the last one to leave. So it was like, it's a tough journey, but it taught me a lot. And then unfortunately, I got injured in my last year, and then I had like problems dancing. And that I had to rethink my life actually. And then I remember I used to always work like 2, 3 jobs in between my studies, just to help myself financially, because London is an expensive city to live in. And a friend, I worked in this a nightclub as a hostess, and then there was a lot of dancers used to come in there, and then as usually dancers have their dance offs, whatever. And then a friend of mine said, "Why don't you just go do like get some film work, or do some modeling or some acting, commercial work? You'll be great for it." I'm like, "Definitely no, I'm not an actress, and just leave me out of it. I don't want to do it." But he was so insistent that I was like, "All right, I'm gonna go get that portfolio done. Okay, just leave, as long as you're gonna leave me alone." And I got that portfolio done, and then he was like, "Just apply to those extra agencies. You'll make extra money, and you see how films work. You might like it." And I did that. And my first job as an extra, like the people sitting in the background drinking coffee, and that was for the Jurassic World. And I remember I went on this massive set, and it was like, wow, this is the world that I would love to live in. And then from there on, I met like other stunt performers, and then I met a lot of people. And that's actually where for the first time, I met Ermerk, who taught me everything I know about FMA. So it's very interesting how everything connected. And so that was a great experience. And then I started doing like some modeling work on the back of like those agencies. And then I thought, I really want to do martial arts again, because I need that moment. I wasn't dancing anymore, and I was kind of low-key slightly depressed because I was sad. I came here, I sacrificed so much, and I can't do it anymore. And then I started seeking for martial arts. And at the same time, I went to a drama school. And in a drama school, I met Armor again, who does Filipino martial arts. So he was like, just come down if you want to just try some martial arts. And I went in. And yeah, and then I started doing Filipino martial arts. I guess, I'm just talking about Filipino martial arts altogether. And I was like, wow, this is extremely difficult. I could not understand what those Anya was. What am I doing? What am I doing? But it was such a good challenge. So I decided to stick around. And because of that, there's some, stunt performers coming to the dojo, and they doing a lot of like indie films, like, oh, what's your height? For all the stunt performers, they're always asking what's your height, etc. Oh, we need like some girls who do martial arts. Would you like to get involved? And I started doing like these very small like stunt performer roles, like actiony bits. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is so fun. And literally just like that, one job led to the other. So I wasn't really like thinking, oh, I'm going to hunt, or I'm going to be a stunt performer. It's just like was such a natural flow that from one thing led to the other, and then people started recommending you or like seeing your video like on Instagram and asking you to come down to the audition. So I almost in a way feel like it was meant to be. That I meant to study dance because it brought me here to London, and out of the back of that kind of led me into this film industry. And so I say I get to because it's such a pleasure to get to act, to do action, stunt perform, and all this other business. So I feel very, very grateful and very blessed, knowing where I come from.
That's pretty awesome because talk about like a Disney story. I mean, coming out of a small town, going to the big city. I mean, that's the makings of so many adventure stories that we know out there. I mean, we talk about the hero's journey in a very specific, like, young man comes off the farm, dreams big, goes on a tremendous adventure, but we forget about the other side of the population with a young woman who wants more in life and then moves on and has a merry adventure because it's you had a merry adventure with some mishaps and some growth and all those things. And those kind of stories we keep hearing them in a cyclic rate, but they're powerful and beautiful and very interesting because, again, we're probably about the same age, 30s, 40s, I would assume. So,
in my 30s, yeah.
Okay, so golden era of martial arts in film was definitely in the late 80s and early 90s. We say like the progenitors back in the 70s with Bruce Lee and the old G's of the film industry, but really like where it comes to the prominence where the mass distribution is definitely the early 90s when it comes to martial arts films, because also like you have these huge martial arts festivals and demos that were recorded like on ESPN with the NASCA competition. And so you see a lot of those a lot of those practitioners, a lot of those martial artists who eventually get into the stunt field or already were, but like there is that connection and process, which definitely some of my favorites definitely come from the 90s when it comes to martial arts films. And it's really cool about the international language, the universal language of what martial arts can do or just movement can do as an inspiration, let alone entertainment. And that idea of I see this, I want to go do this, and so here we are. But you got into Kyokushin karate. That is hardcore. I mean, I have a background in, I have a black belt in Shotokan and I have a black belt in Taekwondo, but this is old school Taekwondo where we're doing full knockouts. This is Olympic. It's pre like the tag game, but Kyokushin, they go hard and they haven't let up. So like anybody who spends a significant amount of time there, that's a different level of awesome. So that's great.
And you know what it taught me? It's the perseverance. I remember I was young, we had like the exams. I remember, the grading. And at the end of the grading, you have to go to do the push-ons on your knuckles. And I remember the person who was grading us, he said, if you're gonna drop, that's it, you failed. And I remember I was like probably like 11 maybe. In my mind, I had to find the reason, like, how do I motivate myself not to give up? Because, you want to just want to drop and you want to give up. And I remember I used to think about what am I going to do after my successful grading, that I'm going to show my diploma to my mom. And I remember in my mind, it's like, I'm going to buy like a chocolate. And actually, this conditioning very early in the age kind of teaches you a lesson. So now, even when I'm a grown woman, I'm an adult, every time things get really tough, I'm going to remind myself what's there to look forward if I'm going to persevere this challenge. So I think that's why it's so great for all the children to do martial arts, because it teaches you that discipline that becomes, your second nature later on in your life.
Yeah, the story and the lessons of perseverance through suffering, because I mean, to build resiliency, build mental toughness, you have to go do the hard things, celebrate the hard things, and do the hard things because they're hard.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like you said, discipline comes out of that. But uh, again, there is this balance about being mentally tough, physically tough, resilient, all these things, but you have to deal with a bit of pain, trauma, and injury to understand or have the language of the difference between this is I'm hurt, I'm uncomfortable, I'm scared, or I'm legitimately having a crisis here. So having
Mm-hmm.
that breadth of experiences to draw upon, and it sucks in the moment, but when we can get out of that crisis mode and the little bit that comes afterwards and just find that enlightenment afterwards, that's powerful. And yeah, congratulations on going through that process and getting the reward of not just the chocolate but the life lessons attached to it.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like if I probably didn't have those experiences, I wouldn't be the way I am, where I am today. Because even the fact that, to be honest with you, I don't know how my mother let me go, actually. But the thing is, I'm very stubborn. So once I make a decision, sometimes it takes me a while to make a decision because I'm always thinking, okay, what are the options? I'm trying to think of all the different ways. But once I make a decision, that's it. I'm like, I'm so stubborn. I'm gonna do it no matter what. I can be sick, not sick, whatever. I'm gonna be 100% committed. And to be honest with you, if I would had a daughter and she comes to me when she's 18, I'm gonna go to, I don't know, to like America somewhere. I'll be like, I'm not sure how it would feel. But you just have to let them. At the same time, just have to let them do what they have to do, because sometimes you have that. I'm not sure. Maybe it sounds very cliche, like a life calling. Can we call that? But I feel like sometimes you know these things that nobody else knows it, or even you don't understand at that particular moment, but it's like it changes the trajectory of your life. My life would be very different today if I stayed in Lithuania.
Yeah, it's that the courage to the call to action, the call to adventure. It's a cliche when it's can't when you fall. It's cliche when you have these expectations and then it falls on your face, and then you go through that cycle of disappointment and you just stay there. Versus there's the call to action, go through the difficult things, have the adventure, have the misadventure, but you come out in the end with incredible depth of experiences, difficult and overall. But there's that growth process, and you're celebrating the difficulties. You're doing the things that are hard because they're hard, and making way through. And yeah, it makes you more interesting person in the end. We talk about people with trauma who come out of it in the end. What all of that trauma does is, one, it informs a lot of like what they can do and what they've done, but it also makes them very interesting and unique and have this beautiful tapestry of experiences that is uniquely them. And that's really cool. It's special. Comes out a lot of pain, but in the end, it's pretty powerful. Speaking of which, growing up in a former Soviet state with the ever looming cultural problem, or like the fear and terror of Russia right on your doorstep, especially with their 3 year long war and invasion of Ukraine. My brother was stationed in Germany and spent a lot of time doing the force protection and forward uh, European joint operations in dealing with Russia and that war. And it's interesting about the cultural like connection and trauma, but also like the resiliency of a people who are seeing this again, but also just within living memory, had to go through that process of the fall of the Soviet Union and trying to define themselves afterwards. So, can
Mhm.
you speak a little bit to that?
Yes, and I think when you look at that bigger picture where your country's been like even, because Lithuania became independent in the 1990s. And when you think about it, for a country that's such a short time of being independent, I, s- I definitely kind of have a different compassion for my parents. When you're like growing up and you're a teenager, they were like a tough parents. I used to spend my summers with my grandparents, like in a countryside, and they used to be like farmers, and the kind of notion I was brought up with. For instance, if we have like a land of like of strawberries, you are only allowed to eat as much as you want to like they grow like strawberries in like these lines. I'm not sure how you call it in English. So you can only eat those strawberries that you helped your grandmother look after. So if you, let's say, if you were lazy, and if you only did like, I don't know, like 1 meter, that's as much as you can eat, because that was like a dessert, right? But if you help a lot, that means you can go and help yourself as much as you want. So my parents always taught me that nothing is just given to you. So you have to, if there's anything you want, you have to go there and earn it. And it was with everything. I used to have summer jobs and make my little money. But my parents were amazing because I was always really good in school, so they kind of allowed me to study as much as I wanted. They didn't really like force me to work, etc. But is the Lithuanians, like the very tough nation. They work hard. They work very hard. And actually, on that note, I went to Lithuania a few weeks ago, and I was talking with my granddad, and I was very curious. I said, "Can you just tell me a bit more how it was when you were growing up?" And he told me like some interesting things, like my great granddad's brother. He was actually taken by Russians, and he was taken to Siberia, and they shot him to death just because they thought that he was a double agent. So there's lots of family history that sometimes I feel like your family don't want to talk about it, because it didn't happen to maybe to my grandparents, but great grandparents and their family. And I feel like sometimes that sad history is just been kept inside for them for so long. And sometimes what happens, it kind of challenged through to their children and the way they bringing them up. So that tough love sometimes just means they just really just want to protect you just in case anything happens. And when it comes to like the war with Ukraine, I think my grandmother, especially at the very beginning, she was very, very scared. She used to be afraid. Like at night, she couldn't sleep, and she's like, "Oh my goodness, it's gonna be like a war happening again." Because when they were telling me the stories back in the day, there was lack of everything. Even if you wanted to go to buy bread, my granddad said used to be a massive queue, and there was a dedicated amount of loaves of bread you can have according to how many family members you can have. So they were so used to collect everything. So I think like now when I go home, there's so many garages of stuff they never use. But I think in their psyche they're so used to collecting because you never know when you're not gonna have it. The same with food. It's like freezers full of meat. It's like you don't even need it that much. It's just like mom and dad in the house. But they just have that unconscious, I think it's unconscious fear of what if you're not going to have it tomorrow. And sometimes it's on the news as well. I don't really follow Lithuanian news as much, but they keep telling you have to have these things in store just in case. Where do you go hide if anything happens? Like, do we need to have like a designated area where we go? Especially where I grew up, there's a military base, and before there used to be like, of course, Soviet Union used to be there, and there's like some secret places in the forest because it's surrounded by forest. And now there's a military base. They brought back in the training, so even during the day you could hear like shooting, like is it the training range, the shooting, the training. And There used to be like tanks going in the city and stuff. So it's really real, you know. It's really there. And maybe in a way, because my parents were tough, everyone's been tough. They made me tough as well, you know. So sometimes when I want to complain or I think, oh, my life is very hard because I didn't get this audition, I have to really kind of slap myself in the face and remember this. To even audition is a blessing, and there are people who really struggle for real. Let's say like in Ukraine now, in other parts of the world where there's war, really there happening, and they're being bombarded. There's bombs dropping. That's fear. That's when you can start complaining why it's happening to me. For all of us in the Western world, you know, I think we have to humble ourselves and and think that we're actually having a very good, even though the problem we have is real, but it doesn't mean like we're not gonna come out of it, or it's not, you're not gonna die if you're not gonna succeed. Basically, I hope that
Yeah,
answers the question.
no, that's great. That's we are so, especially here in the US, there is such a disconnect to a lot of these global conflicts, and especially by generation, mainly just because by nature of the US has been, hate to say it, winning in conflicts round and round. I mean, by definition, where we haven't had our cities being bombed, we haven't had the direct connection of like we have war on our doorsteps. We've always been in projecting outward, save for a little incident called 9/11. There is that, and we had a generation. I mean, the last 20 years of war that we've gone through, like my generation veterans. So there is that immediate touch point. But when it comes to like our cities being bombed and that specter of the former Soviet Union and then their encroachment, we really don't have that here in the U.S. So it's more of a there's a bit of cognitive dissonance. There's quite a bit of ignorance to it, but
Mhm.
and of course, like in the U.S., there is quite a bit of poverty. Because I grew up in Southern California and also like the South, there's a lot of poverty and there's a lot of struggle culturally. But and there's quite a bit of violence in those communities. But when it comes to like urban America or suburban America, like there isn't a lot of that the big specter looming over the people about warfare. So there's just things that they don't think about, like food storage and emergency preparedness. There's more of that coming today because again, the GWAT veteran community, plus like the things that are looming as ever present in the news. But what's interesting is you touched on about your grandmother hoarding food in that generation. My adoptive grandparents on both sides served in World War II. And the stories that I really talk about is my grandfather, who was a World War II Marine Raider. So he went through the entire Pacific campaign. Um, so there's that. But more or less in that stateside response to World War II and in dealing with that generation, it's really my grandmother that I remember growing up in her home where there's food storage everywhere. There
Mhm.
is that immediacy of we have to prepare now because we don't know if we'll have food tomorrow, and having that impression, it's like, yeah, things are real. And also on top of all that, being in the Midwest for a little while, and the Midwest is historically a place of settlement for refugees. So I was around a lot of Vietnamese refugees, a lot of Bosnians, and later Iraqi and Afghani. And it's really interesting to hear the stories and see the realities of they have a different life than Americans have. And it's important that we see this and build that connection to keep us humble and in perspective, because like a lot of the kids that I trained with in my earlier days in taekwondo were a lot of these Vietnamese kids, like the best fighters that, like, you talk about Kyokushin and this tough and like that mindset. A lot of these Vietnamese kids who fought in the camps and then they immigrated to the US, when training with them, like I have some very distinct memories and bruises and getting beat up in this basement of a Vietnamese church with uh, underneath a dirty roof and a dirty floor with 20 Vietnamese kids, and the walls are just sweating and everybody's bleeding. It's like, yeah, it's a different level of why we train. And yeah, having that as a foundation for growing up there in Europe, I mean, that's powerful. It's important and it makes us interesting. So yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, definitely. And when they say like, "Oh, we having it lucky in the Western world," I would never want to put anyone down and say, "Oh, your problems is not real," because even in London, knife crime is real and it's dangerous. But I think what I mean that you have to put your life in a perspective. Sometimes it's like looking at the painting. If you look at the painting like this, you can only see like two colors. You have to take yourself out to really see the big picture, and then you can actually really appreciate the whole painting. And I think this is the same with our life. That's when they say like traveling is important, because then you get to see other cultures, you get to see and appreciate how people live. The same thing when I went to Philippines. It's like you see how different people live. They say where I grew up, everyone pretty much, because our population is small, our country is small, but there's only like less than 3 million Lithuanians. Pretty much everyone have, their house, their land, and their space. When you go to Philippines, even the countryside, okay, you might not be very wealthy, but you still have your land, you have space to move around. When I went to Philippines, people, like a shanty town, it's like people like my goodness, and they conditions compared to like Europeans sometimes. We had our challenges in terms of war, but they live in such a small spaces, so many family members, and they're still very happy. They still share the food. They laugh. They go to sing in the karaoke's, and it's like it's amazing. It's like it's just beautiful to see, the resilience they have, and then they still enjoying their life to the max that they can. I think that's what I mean. So we have to look at that bigger picture. And sometimes our problems they're not that deep, when you think about it. Of
Yeah.
course,
Oh, go ahead.
no, I mean like I hope you understand what I mean. It's like of course there's illnesses, etc. But overall, we are very lucky. We're very
Yeah,
lucky.
yeah, it's really interesting with the human stories of resiliency through shared suffering, and yet what is more interesting, powerful, and beautiful, even though it comes from brutality, is the fact that having gone through all that, and I talked about this more from war fighting, talking to a lot of veterans who, and just that community is, you see a lot of young men and women who dealt a lot of death and involved in a lot of violence, and there's a lot of them, obviously they're touched by war, and PTS is and the lasting impression of that is there. But there's also, for what I find with these elite warriors, where you can't question their courage, their bravery, and their sacrifice, like these special operators. What I find with a lot of them, if they're not a sociopath, is that they have an incredible level of empathy because they know the far extreme, and as a result of it, they see the gratitude of every day, every breath, every that opportunity, and that gratitude, having gone through such a crucible of life for that amount of time. And so again, that gratefulness back and forth. So, and just the same, people who grew up in poverty, they there's a poem, and I'm going to butcher it, but basically it's, I didn't know that I was poor until you told me. I didn't know I was oppressed until you said so. That kind of mentality, and it's more of an indigenous poem, but it's still, the fact is, like, they're happy because that's what they know. And on top of all that, people are happy and content because they have all those things, from stability, not necessarily money, food, etc., but they have the stability of a people, their family, a strong sense of self and community. And again, in the U.S., a lot of places are detached from that kind of like sense of unity, of multi-generational unity, because you have all the family members living in the same household, despite not having a lot of the income and a lot of the that financial security, but they have that stability of, this is our people, this is who we are, and if we pool together, we'll be okay. So that's really cool.
No, no, definitely. And I like I really like what you said about training with those Vietnamese boys taekwondo. They were like the toughest one, isn't it? Because they know how to persevere through when it's uncomfortable, and the only way to become better is to push yourself through that uncomfortable space. And that's how martial arts is. When you go to military and then you serve, it's the same thing. It gets uncomfortable, and I bet when you have to go on that mission or wherever you're being sent, it doesn't feel like, oh my goodness, yeah, I'm gonna be okay. You're actually responsible for yourself and for your team members. It's like a triple responsibility. So I think it's just yeah, I just wanted to add to that. This kind of brings back to the Filipino martial arts. That's the only way to become better version of yourself. Not like, oh, become the greatest. Just become a better version of yourself.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, some of the people that I have found to be the toughest, resilient, and empathetic, and also like they have that drive, are typically immigrants or people who come from the inner city in poverty. Especially when I was fighting in boxing, Muay Thai, like the inner city kids, like that culture of like this is the way that we get off the block. This is the way we get away from gang banging. So they're in the gym, putting it in hard, and that being in that culture, especially that martial arts culture, it sets a different tonality when it comes to the reasons why you're there and versus the reasons why they are there. And again, being a former gangbanger, it's like I get that, and again, translating those reasons why to privileged urbanites, it's hard, but it's important to do, and it brings a different energy. So with that, diving back into your history because you have a dance background,
Mm-hmm.
um, how did the preamble there of growing up there in Lithuania in a small town and with the specter of recent history, how did that translate with the way that you dealt with dance compared to others? Because, like you said, you're competing against men and women who in the dance community that have been doing this since they're really small, but you're hungry, you're going after it, and plus you have this wealth of experience to draw from as to the reasons why you are there.
I think what it was, I wasn't willing to give up. So let's say I wasn't good at ballet because I studied contemporary dance. I wasn't good at ballet, but that was important. It was part of the grading. So what I used to do, so let's say our ballet class was at 9 a.m. And at that moment, I remember that second year, I think, or even first year, I lived like 2 hours away from my university. Because obviously, the further you live, the cheaper it is, right? And so I used to wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning, just travel there, get there for like 7:30. And I used to do extra hours of ballet before actual ballet kicks in. And then, save up some money. I hired a ballet teacher just to teach me private lessons. And that was the only way I excelled. I never it's interesting. I never really thought, maybe it's just my brain. I never really thought like, oh, I'm like very talented. I always thought of myself. I'm a hardworking, and I'll do whatever it's necessary for me to become better. If I give my all, yeah, and I know I gave my all and I didn't succeed, that is fine. At least I can go sleep at night and rest assured I did everything I can. I think what unsettles me sometimes is when you want something but you're not really giving your 100%. And it has happened to me, and I think it's part of the learning process. And sometimes it happens because the fear kicks in, and that's why it's very important to surround yourself with people who coming from a similar background and they have the same hunger. Because sometimes when your battery is running low, you know we're people, we can't do everything on our own. Sometimes you need those other people around you to inspire you and remind you. So I had like those moments when I was like, I'm not sure how I'm gonna do this, but that was just fear talking. And then you go back home or you catch up with the people like in the dojo, you go train, and they just remind you, why did you start in the first place? And then you say, that was so silly for me to be afraid. I even had these auditions, let's say, where people send their recommendations and they were like, oh, you should apply for this job. And I'm like, I'm not gonna apply for this. These are the best performers in the world. How are they gonna take me? And then they're gonna reach out to you anyways, and they invite you for audition. And I'm like, you see all that sometimes that negative self-talk, but I think it just comes with the industry we are in because it's so competitive. Sometimes it's really important to take yourself back, remind yourself why you started. If you need to meditate, go punch some bag, let it out the anger, whatever, and then you kind of bring yourself back to the core of who you are. So yeah, dancing, martial arts, dancing taught me so much. And dancing world, there's a lot of girls in my uni. They're competitive. They want to, and sometimes unfortunately with women they can be, they don't play fair. I feel like with men sometimes it's easier. Men, they're just gonna go outside, have a fight, punch each other, and after that they just shake their hands and they're fine. With women is different. They just gonna dig you forever. So it was tough, but it taught me different kind of lessons, and then you find your circle. And then the only way I realize, and sometimes I say to the younger students that I teach, that it's not about them, it's about you. The only way for you to really succeed is you focus on yourself and what you want to do. Because if you're going to start comparing yourself with the others, that means you constantly have to turn back, and that's wasting your energy. You're not living daydreaming. Don't compare yourself, because sometimes with comparison, without realizing, you start doing the things that they do, and it's completely out of line with actually your true purpose. So don't compete with others, compete with yourself. Am I better than I was yesterday? And I think that's like the biggest lesson that dance taught me. Doesn't matter what they do, doesn't matter what they say or talk. You just focus on you, and at the end you're going to succeed.
Yeah, there's a wonderful quote out there that comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
Because it robs you of the present, because you're too busy looking outward at other people or looking side by side. When the fact is, you have to be present in your own body, and remember what your reasons why, based upon where you came from, and on top of all that, where you're trying to go. And we talk about this constantly about dealing with generational trauma and going through trauma recovery. Of if you're stuck in the past and you keep going back to the past, you're robbed of the future, and you're also robbed of the great opportunity of what is around you and moving forward. Again, rear view mirror, small thing. The front windshield of the adventure around and that new opportunity of life, that's bigger, it's more grand, and you're moving forward.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's really cool. And also, like with a little bit of dance, running joke is that if you can't dance, you can't fight. But clearly, there's athletes who can fight. But what I have found with martial artists who come in later in life to the martial arts, and if they have a background in dance, like that kinesthetic awareness and that body control and that in rhythm, that's a big one. Rhythm and timing it sets a martial artist apart. Now, of course, like being hungry and doing the hard work, and you can figure it out. But what I have found, like athletically, dancers and gymnasts coming into martial arts, that's a whole different ball game when it comes to their athleticism and being able to pick up that proprioceptive connection of body awareness is really cool to see that connection. So, how has dance helped with your martial arts? Because and also like the other aspect, particular to FMA, because a lot of people don't on the outside may not understand like how does dance relate to FMA, but I mean if you know you know. But from your perspective, how has dance informed your capabilities in FMA?
So, because I studied contemporary dance, so let's say if you had a dance routine, you perform everything on like a right side, and then you perform things on the left side. So you have to relearn the choreography, and I found that it really helped me with FMA, because with FMA, whatever you do with the right, you have to be able to perform with your left, and that helped me to. I'm not saying that was easy, but it was easier to understand that yourself in a space and how to complete the annual, the form, with your left hand, and don't get lost in a space. So that was very helpful. I think the rhythm, like you said, there's a timing. There's certain like sensitivity drills that you do in FMA, or the drills for like speed. You need the rhythm, otherwise you can't perform it with your partner. Because sometimes people become very stiff, because you just become like, because kyokushin is very tough. It's a different kind of motion. So I think it helped me with that, or just me performing. This is actually, the video was, I think, a few years back, and I like this form because it's just like really flowy and it gets you into meditation zone. And actually, like people like from Philippines, when they do it, they're so flowy. So I really look up to them, and they have so many. I can give a shout out. This is one girl I trained with her actually in Philippines. Her name is Trixie. She's like a world champion. She's like the best. She's like an amazing. She's like my hero. She's so wonderful, and I was so happy when she agreed to teach me.
That's
And what
awesome.
else? I think what else has helped me. it's just it comes with flexibility. As a dancer, you're flexible. So let's say this FMA, this empty hand technique. So I think it helps with that. So you don't feel stiff, and now people can put you in a locks. It doesn't break you straight away. I guess these things.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, there was that not Berkeley, UCLA study with cognitive Colley. I think I forget the gentleman's name who did it. They did a TED talk about it. How people who study FMA at the beginning, because the complexity of one, the bilateral symmetry that's involved in, say, Sinawali, and on top of all that, you're dealing with different level changes. Plus, you have on the other side, you have complex independent limb tasking, so that's making your brain really work, especially cross hemispheric. And again, the studies prove that because it's complex in the beginning, they have a higher opportunity to pick up movement thereafter because they're engaging with the entirety of their body rather than just the static where you have start and then stop motion, start and then stop motion. And with dance, I mean, you have that consistent, like, you're going through various movements at different ranges, different rates of speed, tempo, and timing, and all those things. Yeah, it's especially when you're working with partners, because a little known fact is with my own history is I was a ballroom dance instructor for a little while. I really wonder also just as a thing, but like if I had stayed in that career field, how my life would have changed. But anyways, yeah, being a Latin ballroom dancer and working in the complexity of spins and turns and all that, like that put a real tax on one's brain, but it also definitely applied to like doing partner work and especially dealing with rhythm and timing of, for one, like dealing with fighters and being in the ring in the cage. Like you can gauge distance, you can gauge time, and you're just overall aware of like where you're at in the space and where they're at in that space, and also not relying on just staring at your feet. So that's a cool part about dance.
Yeah, actually, yeah, the fact that the distance between the partner is actually sometimes so undervalued, but is extremely important. And sometimes, I'm like always wonder. Sometimes it takes a bit of longer for some people to understand the distancing in the partner work. But I think it's just amazing. That's why people join the FMA. You don't join there because you're already great. You join there because you're there. You want to learn there. And I feel like later on in life, and you're gonna be grandmas and granddads, it's just I think it's also gonna pay off because I believe our mobility will be different, and then we can hopefully, if you're lucky to grow to the older age, you're gonna be more mobile and be able to enjoy the life more.
Yeah, the cool part about FMA is, I mean, there is the critique of it's an old man's art because you're not doing the jumpy, kicky, spinny stuff, say, like with XMA, of like Taekwondo, these things that are very taxing on the body, especially on your joints, and the impact of jumping in the air and then landing. There is that aspect of it. And on top of all of the lack of the head trauma as a result of combat sports, there is that aspect where FMA has that longevity. Yeah, you'll get a boo boo here and there, getting smacked and cracked with a stick. You get maybe a broken hand or something, especially with lesson one, angle one meets angle one. But the longevity of what FMA has on the frame and also the brain is quite interesting and unique. And also, if somebody starts with FMA and then moves forward, I find, and there's a lot of argument that an individual who starts with FMA and just continues forward with that, and as the primary progression, like they have an adaptability that's unique, unlike somebody who starts in say like karate or shotokan, these very static martial arts that are incredibly dynamic, but still very static in their movement. There's a bit of like that physical awareness that's missed because they're not dealing with a constant change in rhythm and spacing and timing and the level changes, plus the complexity of you got sticks, they got sticks, you're trying not to get hit in the face, and et cetera, et cetera. And speaking of FMA, and again, this is the FMA show, and we're about an hour into it, but we really haven't talked about your lineage of FMA. So can we let's backtrack and talk about your FMA journey and where you're going with it.
So like I mentioned before, I started here in London with Ermor Alexander, which is a six dan black belt in Eskrima Doce Pares. And Ermor was taught by Supreme Grandmaster Dionisio Cagnete himself. And unfortunately, he passed away not long ago. So I never really got to see him himself. But I was lucky to train with his son, Master Gerald Cagnete. So I was training with them in Philippines. So this is my, you know, so this is Master Ermor Alexander. He's always really tough on me. Because every time we do a training with him, I pretty much just end up repeating the basics over and over again. And every time I want, oh, can you have a look at my, I don't know, brown belt forms or something? He's like, show me your 4 count. Four count is basically it's like the basic, like a warm up drill that you do in every FMA class. And he's not afraid to just whack me one if I'm not focused. But I love it though, because maybe that's how I was taught in Lithuania, Kyokushin karate. Tough, because I feel like the tougher the training is, the better you become. Because if it's very soft and if you're tired, go sit down. I think you're not gonna build that muscle of perseverance. So if you're here doing just like a random strikes of Besdario 1, only linear strikes. So Besdario 1 is like a very basic strikes, just linear. They have certain patterns, and he just give me some random attacks, and I need to counter basically. So yeah, so this is like my lineage. So I was very lucky. I trained in the headquarters in Philippines, in Cebu, and I got to see other people training there, and like some world champions. My mom used to always say, if you have to surround yourself with people you want to be one day. So I always try to surround myself with the people who are better than me. It might feel a bit intimidating because they're amazing. And Master Rudy was there as well. He was showing like a knife techniques and empty hand, and he's so amazing. He's so fast. He just shows me something one time, and I'm like, wow, this is really fast. But I learned so much from the master. But of course, you go with the masters because unfortunately you can't spend that long in Philippines as much as I would like to. The real work happens when you train on your own, because you have to put in those hours and that 4 count and all the basics, counters. When you come in a class, you just get corrected, you learn the syllabus, but the real work is on your own, in front of the mirror or no mirror, just practicing over and over again. I think it's just that classic quote by Bruce Lee. I'm going to paraphrase it. It's like, you don't have to fear the man who knows 1,000 kicks. You need to fear a man who did one kick 1,000 times. So I really believe in that.
Yeah, that's basics. As somebody who is a master of the basics, foundation is key. This drillers make killers. It's everybody sees the ooh shiny of all the cool things, especially with Karenza and Instagram. But again, you can really tell who can really move based upon the crispness and the attention to detail in those fundamental movements and the execution of that. So yeah, again, martial artists out there getting into it, like, do your homework, do your self work, but yeah, hone the basics, because everybody should have a hammer and be very proficient at a hammer, because that's the primary tool of a lot of work, just like a screwdriver. But like when you're too focused on the new widgets and doohickeys and things that look really cool, you end up being like a jack of all trades but a master of none. But like the people who can really understand the core fundamentals and just repeat that over and over and over. It's the whole aspect that fighting is simple but not easy. It's simple because the basics, the foundation is laid there, and if you master that, it becomes easy. It stays simple, but the part where it's not easy is all that work. So on top of all, so specific features of your lineage with Doce Pares, I interview a lot of modern Arnis guys. I interview a lot of PTK guys, and of course I interview a lot of Blintwalk guys because I'm in that community. Just so this is a standalone episode, Could you explain the features of Doce Pares as to what makes it stand alone compared to some of these other lineages, especially some of these other Brazilian styles like Balintawak and PTK?
Mhm. So what I really like about I love all of FMA. So I really love. I don't have like, oh, this is better than the other. I'm definitely not like that. But Doce Pares is a multi-style. So we're using close quarter, mid, and long range. So we have the techniques that we build up. So we learn how to fight close quarter, mid range, and the long range, which I think I find it very beautiful because in the fights you come across all of those different aspects. And of course, like this Kakoi Doce Pares, who they focusing on the curving strikes, and we dive into that as well. I feel like with Doce Pares, it takes you a long time to, let's say, to get a black belt. I don't really care that much about the getting a black belt. I never rush. I don't have a black belt, by the way, just because. To be honest with you, if not the master armor, I would never probably even grade it because I always thought I'm not good enough. I need more practice. But he was like, okay, you're ready. You're ready to go to the next level. So the master pushes you to, okay, you're ready, go and grade. So it's a multi-style, and then we learning at first what I really like about it. We learning the mid range, the linear strikes. Then once we kind of understand the linear strikes, we adding the curving strikes. So I really love the lesson plan how the Doce Pares introduces you, so it doesn't become overwhelming. And we don't always stay on a close quarter. We That's why I guess it's called multi-style. So different styles come into the one, and then we try to create the warrior, who is capable to adapt to anyone and anything that will be thrown at them. That's how I personally understand the Doce Pares.
Oh, that's cool. And also for those who don't know FMA history, Doce Pares also was the foundation and the primary leadership behind passing the Arnis law, especially after World War II. And also for people who don't know FMA history, uh, this is very much like a kung fu story where we talk about like my dojo versus or my school versus your school and then duels. The same thing happened in the Philippines. And for those who don't know, like Doce Pares, the attempt was to bring together all these surviving grandmasters who survived the occupation of the Japanese of World War II. And instead of like trying to kill each other and compete against each other, the intent was to bring everybody together, have a unified council, and celebrate the diversity of Filipino martial arts throughout the archipelago in the country, and also to eliminate some of those politics. Of course, like a lot of organizations, they fall apart and people break away. Like the case of Balintawak, they kind of did this. They kind of moved away with Action Bacon, but the core of it, what I found with Doce Pares is, again, they are the political leaders in the Philippines of pushing forward that national level of prominence for making Arnis the national sport, and also like that tourism, the martial arts tourism, to expand out. So you're and attached to that, you're a two-time world champion in stick fighting, correct?
Yes.
You talk about that because I mean that's cool. So
So how it was is I competed in the British championships. Sometimes, it's tricky for me because of the work that I do. Sometimes you can't always go into like the full sparring mode because sometimes I just can't afford to have any bruises. If you're booked for a job and if you're gonna come in with a bruise, on your body, they're not gonna be really happy. So it's kind of was a tricky one. But I said to myself, I really want to compete at some point because I want to challenge myself. My thought for competing was, okay, what if I'm gonna put my whole as much time as I can to prepare myself for competition. I just want to see what can I achieve if I'm gonna give my all. So literally, I kind of went to the competition with this kind of mentality. And then we had this competition in last year in UK. It was World Sport Tourneys. They organized their first World Championship. So the timing was right. I wasn't booked like on a job or or anything. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it now. So I was training 5-6 times a week, running 10 kilometers every day. That was the hardest actually part. And after the run, then I would literally would do this. We'll put the gear on and we just go spar for like an hour. Sometimes I would even put like some weights on, just kind of make myself heavier. I'm Lithuanian, so I'm used to kind of colder weather. So for me, that heat element is like it's the hardest part. And after that, like do like push-ups, like sit-ups and stuff. So that was kind of my routine, and it made me a better runner because I love running, but running 10 kilometers 6 times a week, that's a different kind of challenge because you become sore, you want it or not. And then when I went to compete, I love knife. So when I went to on a competition, there was like a 2 or 3 days competition. I don't remember now, maybe 3. And we had like the annual forms, and we had I guess like stick live sparring, which stick live stick sparring, and then the padded stick. So you have like less pads, etc. I hated padded sticks. It's just like what's it called, the number system. So you hit, then you get a point, whatever. I thought I'm gonna fail this one big time. A live stick, I really like sparring, so I thought, oh, it's gonna be fun. So I got second place in that one. Knife, I love the most. This is why it's very interesting. I love the knife the most, and I had the most confidence in it, and I completely lost. Didn't get nothing. But you know what it was, because I think that's why they always say have to like stay very humble. That's not what I wasn't humble. I just didn't have that extra nerves to kind of really stay alert. And I was listening to my coach, and he's like, "Okay, go back, do this." And I misunderstood his direction, and I lost my first fight, and I was out. But anyways, it happens, right? It's part of the progress. And with the padded sticks, this is the one I thought I'm definitely gonna fail. It was actually the one that I won, and I was really surprised that I won gold. So it's very interesting. So that's why sometimes you never know what's gonna happen. You just have to go there and just do the best that you can. And the annual, I was extremely nervous. I don't know why. I was stiff as hell. Just couldn't even breathe. Just was really, really nervous. But I'm glad I did it. I'm really, really glad. Just got to show to myself that I can do it. So that means if I can do this in a fighting when there's someone screaming, coming at you, trying to kick your butt, that means I can do other things in life as well.
Yeah. Fighting is definitely one way to make oneself humble, because the mat doesn't lie, the cage doesn't lie, and also helps put in that perspective again, resiliency and confidence through capability, having done the hard thing. Because yeah, if you're killing yourself in the gym, I mean, I train jujitsu quite heavily, and again, I'm dealing with I'm getting strangled and choked out all the time, getting put in these weird positions, and that constant grinding out and dealing with that shared suffering, but also just getting beat up. Yeah, things put you into perspective. Like maybe life's not that hard because I'm not getting choked out by a 16-year-old wrestler with no off switch, because they're a switch, not a dial. And the same could be again fight prep for any competition. So yeah, that's coming out of it. That's awesome. I call fighting, it's not necessarily about, there's a lot of critique about combat sports, about it's so brutal, it's so violent. It's like, well, yeah, it can be, but what it also is a celebration of all that hard work that an athlete did. And so they finally get to have that high point. They get to put a cap on the end of it of saying, hey, I did all this hard work and then I got into it and then I did the thing. And like, hey, I'm celebrating me and all that process of hard work and sacrifice. I'm also celebrating the other guy or gal in their same process of hard work and sacrifice. So it ends up being cathartic of like, hey, I did the thing. So here we go. Yeah, that's awesome. That again, stick fighting is cool. So yeah, that's cool.
And unless you did a stick fighting, even you wearing like those gloves, that pain, if someone hits your hand with a stick, you feel it. It doesn't matter how much pads you have sometimes, it still goes through. So I feel like everyone should give it a try, and then you really understand what you're talking about. And when you're having that helmet, it's like when you're getting hit with a stick, it's like you inside the bucket, and it's like your head is, you can feel that it's a different kind of weird pain sensation. Yeah, so everyone should try it. I think it's great. You're gonna get less injury than, say, maybe boxing, so that's a plus, I guess, isn't it? But it's definitely worth it. And I think for women, my mom always laughs. She doesn't understand where is this coming from, because there's no one in our family who are martial artists. So they guess they were always think, as a woman you have to, have like, which is nothing. I'm not against it. It's like, it's a beautiful thing. You have a family early, you have kids, you take care of the home, you have like your job, you come back, beautiful, really settled, safe life. You get to, bring these little humans to life. Amazing. So I guess they kind of thought that's how my path is going to be, and I'm completely different. And my brother, who's younger, he's actually more settled. He doesn't particularly into martial arts, so he has a family already, has the house, all those kind of different things. So it's like almost like me and my brother, we switched the places. I'm kind of after all those craziness, moving to London at 19 years old, trying to catch a dream, and my brother is more settled person. He doesn't care about going and sparring.
Yeah, it's amazing the difference between siblings, but it's cool regardless. And again, the reasons why per person changes, and also the reasons why per person is different. Yeah, so going back a little bit, being a woman in the martial arts is a male tends to be a male dominant space, because especially the competitive space, aside from jujitsu, but like in the competitive space, it ends up being, again, a very male dominant space. But when it comes to martial arts in general, what has been your experience as a female FMAer?
I had like a great experience because I feel like everyone's been very supportive. Everyone's there to help you, especially in the dojo. Everyone's just there like to teach you. There's no like not even once, people touch wood, not even once where I experienced someone was kind of trying to cross the line or do something they should not do. So I always felt with martial arts, I always felt very empowered by everyone around. Even here, most of the practitioners are actually men. There's like a few girls, but everyone's really supportive. I guess on the other hand, what I find it difficult, once you become a senior, then you get asked to teach. What I found terrifying is to teach others, actually. I feel such a responsibility of teaching the right techniques that at the beginning, I was like so overthinking it. Oh, this is the right thing, or this is not the right thing. I used to be very scared. And especially like older men who like maybe you have sometimes you have to take a class or like a warm up, and then other people older than you, or maybe they even been there, let's say like longer, or they just left and they came back, and you have to teach them, and they have a knowledge. And I used to be terrified to teach them the wrong thing. And then of course the master said, this is how you become better, because you need to learn how to lead the class, how to command. And he's like, already know a lot. And it took me a while to actually get that confidence. And I just realized actually that everyone was very supportive. So they used to be like, no, you're doing great. So actually the same people in the class, you're doing great. Just teach what you know, that you're confident in. And if it's incorrect, we're going to correct it. He's like, the syllabus is so extent. There's so much techniques. The terminology is so huge. And they were like, if you ever made a mistake, we're going to correct you. And it was just a really lovely thing to hear. So it's just been a great experience for me as a female in the martial arts world.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I mean, a lot of martial arts, especially women in the combat space and the combative self defense space, they tend to come to it after post event, post traumatic event, and so working through that process is very difficult for everybody else, because you're dealing with that trauma informed training. But going into martial arts without that kind of trauma is unique and interesting, and so it sounds like, and again, with what we've talked about today, it's been that inspiration of becoming better, becoming a martial artist, rising to the occasion, the adventure, and being free of a lot of that self-defense, personal protection reasons why to get into it. So and again, this is why I say stunt performers are actually some of my favorite people to talk to in martial arts, because they have that excitement, that exuberance, that celebration of martial arts for martial arts sake, and they don't have the reasons why is because they have to do it because of combat related stuff or combat profession of arms or combat sports, because they get to do this and be performative and get to celebrate like all the cool stuff that martial arts can provide and also demonstrate to the world. So yeah, that congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you. And I think the FMA really helped me in terms of action performing because I did dance and I did FMA. That means when I go to the audition, I can actually pick up the choreography much faster. Or for me, because you constantly train to do these different things, and they're not staccato. So when you have to go perform, I feel like it was just so much easier. So I'm very grateful actually for that. Because I know sometimes people struggle with remembering the choreography, and martial artists, they're brilliant martial artists, but sometimes it can be a bit more challenging for them to remember certain choreographies. So it's just some behind the scenes. I just love performing, and
Yeah.
you know what it is? I love independent films.
Yeah, independent films are really fun to watch because you have because they're low, tend to be low budget. There is that energy of the stunt performers and the actors, just anybody involved with the project, of they have to get this, but they also get to do this. So I have a lot of the freedom of just doing the cool thing without like big budget oversight from a production company or so yeah, it's really cool to see them explore and express because I have like Brian Sloyer. He's a Balintawak FQI based out of LA. They do a lot of small little snippets in independent films, and you get to see like they get to do some things that are just may not be picked up on a big stage, but they get to have fun, and that's really the thing that I find with the performative side of FMA, especially getting into the stunt world, is you guys just get to have fun. You get to dress up, you get to play with the swords and the sticks, and there isn't that impetus of you have to do this because you're preparing for a fight. You have to do this because you have to fight tonight because you're law enforcement, military, etc. You get to do this and you get to do all the cool things for just the purity of this is fun. So yeah, that's awesome.
I know the fact that you get to call this your work. I mean,
Yeah,
like my parents, even now, they don't really understand when I say, "Oh, I'm going to work." For them, that you actually go and when you have to do previous, let's say, and they get paid for like rehearsals, etc. For them, it's hard to understand how are you getting paid for this. It's like how is this? How are you making a living out of it? But yeah, that's why I'm very that's why I say I'm very blessed. Independent films is like when you go on big set, there's so many moving elements. So as a stunt performer, especially if you're like on a daily rate, on just dailies, you come in, you're very small fish in the whole big picture. You're just doing what you're told. When you go to independent films, it's more collaborative. It's almost like the group of people coming together. Okay, what can we bring to the table? How can we make this look better, even though the money is very limited? And I really like that creative process. It's just amazing. Get everyone together, such a teamwork. Okay, what can we do? What can you do? What do you do best? Okay, what do we know? Let's put it in a pot and try to make a choreography. With indie films, very often it's such a limited time. You maybe have sometimes you don't even have time. You might go on set and you have to do a different choreography just because everything's changed. Maybe location is different. So it's just brilliant. This one we did everything, the whole short film in one day. Craziness. One day with the fighting, with the dialogues, everything.
that's
So
cool.
yeah. So a lot of people don't know that, because big films you shoot them for like long, long time, and even the fights you should take a fight in itself to shoot for like a few days, and we did in a couple of hours actually. So it's
Yeah.
just like wonder.
Well, that's cool because I mean it seems like that was very just spur of the moment. Um, what's the word? Improved, but on a there. I mean, there's improv and then there's improv, and that seems to be the latter of the two with that particular project. And like I was saying with performative side of being a stunt actor, I mean, a lot of martial artists, and this is like the process I'm going with my own son, and this is very cathartic and healing of the inner child kind of thing. But like a lot of young men and some young women, they're in the backyard picking up a stick, and every stick is a sword, and they're slaying dragons and playing make believe and doing and living to be these characters, wanting to be these characters. And then at some point, they're told to put the stick down and stop make believing, stop being using that imagination, and get stuck in the everyday life of you. This is your life, and they tend to not come back to that. But with children, we tend to be able to come back to that, pick up the stick and pretend it's a sword and heal all that. But also as a martial artist, you get to do that every day, especially as a weapons based martial artist, and then leading into a stunt actor, like you're literally getting paid to do that. Versus like a combat sports athlete, like you're a professional punching bag. So there is that wear and tear, but as a stunt actor, you guys get to do all the cool things that, again, that inspiration being on the movies and in the TV shows. Because I remember back in the 90s with the Star Wars prequels, like there was a general call for martial artists, especially youth martial artists. So like I did a demo tape, didn't go anywhere. And also with Power Rangers, I did a demo tape, didn't go anywhere. But like the idea, like that divergent path, like I could have had a different life and far less injuries if I had gone that way. So yeah, that's cool when people get to follow that path. And it's also just really cool for us to watch because, yeah, it's fun.
No, definitely. And it's like, they say everything happens for a reason, and you never know what's going to happen in like another 5 years, as long as you do the best you can in the moment. If you follow your passion, once again, sounds such a cliche, you have to follow your passion. I think if you're just working like a job, where you kind of, you go to work 9 to 5 and you don't have any hobbies outside of your work. I think this is what slowly kind of kills your spirit. So everybody should have something, a sport, a hobby that they get to move. And I feel like what I find with martial arts, you get to move, you get to learn all these different things, and also you're learning self-defense. So, I love performing and do those things, but it also comes with the benefits of self-defense. God forbid anything happens, but if that will happen, you have a better awareness or higher chance of survival if anything would happen. And I think that's why it's so important to all men and women equally, but especially women, because we naturally weaker than men if you don't, let's say, if you don't train. It's just the strength. Some, of course, if you like 5'7", man comes like 6'3" or something. You have to, in those kind of moments, you have to think, okay, what advantages you have, how can you escape. So that's why it's so important for everyone, even like it's once a week for an hour. When you think about it, it's just once a week, and once a week for an hour, you get to learn self-defense for yourself. And you never know, it might save your life or it might save your loved one's life. I think it's
Yeah.
just better to be prepared.
Oh yeah, being there's a lot to be said of being about being athletic and alert. Because if you can't run, then you have to fight. I mean, there is that phrase: "Those who cannot run, fight." So, but also like those who don't see end up being ambushed. So yeah, having the martial arts training helps with both those cases. Considering or in respect of the fact that like you're not too beat up to do so. I guess for a self defense question, as a woman, do you believe that a woman should their self defense should be surrounded by utilizing a tool to deal with that physicality disparity of dealing with a 200-pound dude who's 6'5"? Because I mean, there's a reason why we have weight classes in combat sports, and so in that regard. And unlike the combat sports, in a self-defense personal protection space, you have tools available to you. Do you believe that as a woman in the self-defense space that a tool should be a primary thing to draw from to equalize yourself in the combat space?
I don't know, maybe if you ask me these questions like 5 years down the line, I might have a different opinion. But at this particular moment, I feel like I personally always have something with me that might be like very small, like nail file. in like keys, because even when you, let's say, spar or you try to do like the locks with someone who is way bigger than you, way stronger, and he's training in martial arts, I struggle to put the lock on them, because they're physically very strong. So I need to sometimes, even as a woman, to adapt certain techniques. Okay, maybe my footing, how much I turn around, just to kind of get him off balance. And I always think that, imagine this kind of man, God forbid, comes with intention of harming you. So he's already kind of, it's premeditated. He already kind of thought of things. How will I be able, just with a mere physical strength, to even put him on lock? I don't know, because maybe other females have different opinion, and I totally respect that. But I feel like like especially like on the street, or like when you have to survive for your life, I would just use something like a nail file or like a hair clip. Always have something in my pocket when I walk around, because if anything happens, at least you can actually, if you go for, like, I don't know, for the arm or something, it's gonna hurt. At least you have that mere millisecond to try and run away from them. That's how I see it. Because in reality, you never know how will you react in those kind of moments. So let's say you're going from work, tired, and that kind of situation happens. You don't know how your body reacts. We can always say like, oh yeah, I will apply the Huber gel, I'm gonna go into the lock, but you don't know. Unless you've been in the military, you went, you served, you actually kind of had those encounters, then you can maybe talk a bit more. But I haven't done it. I only went to like military camps, but that's definitely not the same. So I always think, okay, if I have something on me, at least I have a higher chance of protecting myself. So I always say to the girls, like, nail file. It's not like you're carrying the knife around. Like, a nail file is sharp, is pointy. Keys, like, I don't know, like a ring or something. It's a bit of, there's different ways that you can actually be creative, so you're not really causing harm to anyone, any civilians, I guess that's a right word to say. But if that happened, you can protect yourself. And one of the things, you always try to look what's around you, and I don't know, just see what could you, like the newspaper, you just kind of, on a tube late at night, you kind of see what's around you, and see, okay, with the worst case scenario, if you have a bag, you can just block with a bag or something. So that kind of martial arts really changed that mindset. Okay, how could I protect myself? The heel, you can just take the heel off, like the stiletto. That you can turn that into a weapon. That's why I feel like FMA is very cool, because you can turn any everyday subject into a weapon, which I feel like other martial arts might not necessarily do that. They teach you to teach your body in a different kind of way to protect yourself. But if I fight against a female, then yes, against a man, it's it's a tricky thing, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky thing as a man as well, because again, I referenced the scary ass wrestlers, that basically that 16-year-old young man who's all testosterone, athleticism, and no off switch. So even with 30 plus years of the martial arts and all the things, like, that's a lot for me to deal with. So in dealing with the weight skill, the weight disparity, like, from a woman's perspective, that must add another level of difficulty. And like, talking about extra tools, I mean, historically the hairpin has been one as well, as a different option, because again, this is also the interesting, dealing with the cultural differences of one living in England versus in the US, because US is it's a strong firearms culture. So a lot of people just refer back to my usage of a firearm. I mean, the whole thing of, I got a gun, therefore I'm safe. That's a whole other bird trail and a whole other set of lies. But there in London, I mean, there's a lot of knife crime, and
Yes.
and so the difference of viewpoint and mindset, especially from an American, saying, hey, I don't have to worry about knives, I got guns. But like, elsewhere, it informs a different opinion, because the life experience of what you're actually dealing with there in present. So yeah, it's more of a relevance to train FMA. So yeah.
Yeah, and like, even let's say you have a firearm, if you're not competent with it, someone comes with a knife and they really know the knife, they're gonna come in, they're gonna like they'll find a way to close the gap and actually still do what they need to do. So it's like it's really important to understand all different aspects. That's why martial arts is a journey. It's you're constantly learning. It's not like you're gonna wake up one morning, wow, I know everything, I'm the best. It's never really like that. And I noticed the best martial artists and the people who really dangerous, if they would want to be, they're usually the most humble, and then the most respectful. And they are those kind of people who always find something new to learn, even from, like a white belt. So they never show the authority, I guess I could say, to the other people. They always know that, okay, there's something there to learn. And I guess, not just to add to that, it's like sometimes people use drugs, and people on drugs, they have different kind of energy and different kind of power. So they might not even know how to fight, but you know, they're so crazy in that moment that they can really do some damage. You can be like the martial artist of 30 years. And it happened quite a few times when there's like there was a boxer who got into a fight. He was fighting with a guy, and then his friend came from the back and with a broken bottle and just stabbed him. So it's all those kind of things. You can be great on one-to-one, but then how do you keep the, you know, understanding what's around you? It's a scary thing when you think
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, the context matters when it comes to the way that you train, and this is actually again where I find stunt actors very interesting in their martial arts approaches because they get to live and dive into the mindset without having to have the overlay of we have to do this because of tactical reasons and combat and all those things. But as a stunt actor, you get to create a character, live in the mindset of that character, and so you get to go through these thought experiments and then actually put it into practice in the films, which is it adds a different perspective when it comes to self-defense because again you get to be the mind of that individual. You get to dive into that if you're particular to that role. So yeah, versus like a combat sports athlete, you're conditioned to be in the cage, in the ring, in a duel situation, and you don't have those thought experiments to explore and to experiment with. So yeah, that's interesting.
And when you go to a space and you create a fight choreography, sometimes no, not those moves are sometimes not realistic, because sometimes when you watch a film and you see a lot of comments say this is not realistic, this is definitely not working in real life. And I'm like, yes, we do get it, but if you're going to do only what's realistic in real life, there's no film. The film will end in probably like half of the time. So you kind of give a bit of space for yourself just to indulge in whatever techniques you are using and just have fun with it, because you want people to have fun in it as well. This is, it's not something like as a doctor you're working and you're saving people's life by creating the choreography. You're just there creating choreographies for entertainment purposes. So yeah, that's definitely really fun. I just hope that people would understand that as well. This is just for fun purposes. And we know maybe like in John Wick, like whatever gun certain bits, you wouldn't have like a jacket that you wouldn't get hit, but it's fun to watch, isn't it? Because it's something
Oh,
new to watch on screen.
absolutely, absolutely. The idea of living through or living out the fantasies as martial arts we often do. We're a little wired differently when it comes to stuff like that. So speaking of choreography and as a stunt actress, can you speak of a specific instance that was your favorite stunt situation that you wish you could go experience again?
I really enjoyed working on Working Man. The film came out this year with Jason Statham. I really enjoyed working with the stunt team on that film. Everyone was amazing. We had like this choreography. We got to do like some takedowns. Unfortunately, the choreography was changed, so we never, we never got to film that on set because of like changes in the production. But that was like one of my favorite jobs. Jason Statham is really great. He's a really nice person. So he it was great to talk to him, and the stunt performers that worked on set. They were all, some guys were from America, from France. There's just such a great project to be involved in.
That's cool. Yeah, I love Jason Statham as an actor. Like my favorite roles definitely of him comes from the Expendables, and he's one of those actors that like you can definitely tell he can move. You can definitely tell he's got some experience because in just the same in the film industry, you can see actors who are trying and they lack that authenticity of movement, but you also have stunt actors who can't act but they can move really well. So it's interesting to see that dynamic back and forth. So yeah, that's a really cool opportunity to get to work with such a high caliber actor and stunt performer in his own right.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you can, like you said, yeah, you can tell he has a physicality
Yeah,
and he has charisma. It's like the screen doesn't lie. You can be a great performer, but sometimes that screen presence, you not everyone has it, unfortunately. And he definitely. That's why I think so many people love it. So many of my friends, like different ages, like my mom or whatever, everyone just like loves him. So they just obsessed with Jason Statham. So yeah, he's great. He's a star. He's a star, basically. He's an he's an action star.
that's
And
awesome.
it's not that many nowadays. Like, back in the day, if we refer back to like those films like Stallone, Van Damme, they were action stars. Schwarzenegger, they were action stars. They were iconic, isn't it? And I guess nowadays it's like we have like Jason Statham, probably Keanu Reeves. But there was, I think back in the day was different because they used to, the bodybuilding, I think was pretty strong back in the day. So they had like those, they were like ripped and they, in all those films, there was always the same motive. They training up to be the best. And I just love that. I think maybe that's why I like dancing and martial arts. They used to be underdog and they go through this training regime and they become the best. And I just love that. It's my
Yeah,
favorite of those
it's
films.
the cliche of the training montage. I mean, Rocky, for example, or yeah, Jean Claude Van Damme getting beat up in the jungle and getting stretched out and getting hit with coconuts. I mean, yeah, those are great core memories to have as a young martial artist and get to watch. And then for your case, you get to live. Uh, so speaking of other stunt actors, who is a stunt actor that you would love to work with, or just an actor or project you would like to work with eventually?
I I love Charlize Theron. She is amazing. Oh my gosh, I love her so much. One day I hope so I could just like see her and on set do her thing. Because she's an actress who can act really well, but she can also move very well. Like Atomic Blonde is like one of my favorite films. And then when I watched behind the scenes and coordinator said as well that she can actually do a lot of moves herself without cutting. And that's rare. So she is like one of my icons. I always said I really want. It's like my other hero is like Cynthia Rothrock. I know she was making another film. I love her. She's great. Michelle Yeoh. It's like, oh my goodness, she is like everything. What else? There's quite a few females, but I feel like these three they just come in my mind. Come in my
Yeah,
mind first. They are like brilliant.
one of my favorite would be probably Catherine Winnick from the Vikings show. I mean, in her own right, she's got a couple of black belts, one of them in Taekwondo. So yeah, she moves really well and she can do all the things, and that's really cool. And of course, there is what better leader in the female FMA space other than Diana Inosanto? Because like talk about somebody to look up to, yeah, and also she's Star Wars. So
Exactly.
I
I was
mean,
about to say, yes,
yeah,
I watched her in Star Wars. It was great to see, like, she came, she actually she's representing other females on screen.
mhm,
Sometimes it's amazing for her own journey, but sometimes I'm not sure, maybe because I've never had the chance to speak with her, she actually is paving the path for other females, for other martial artists to go, don't give up on her dreams and just do what she does best. It was
yeah,
great. It was great.
absolutely. So speaking of Star Wars, you were involved with Acolyte. Can you talk about that process?
Yeah, so it was a great experience to get to see all the actors, in action. I got to work with the amazing action team once again, and so basically we had like a bigger fight. It happens so often, like with the bigger budget ones. We had to do like wire work and like some explosions, etc. But unfortunately, we didn't get to do that, which is such a shame because I really wanted to do. How amazing that would be to do that on the big screen, right? So in the end, I was playing like one of the witches you saw the Acolyte, right? So in one of those rooms where they're kind of having a meeting and then the explosion happens, etc., etc. So I was in that scene. So I didn't get to do the explosion, unfortunately, but I get to meet amazing other stunt performers that we spend a lot of time together, you know, connect and find other females to work with. And the stunt team, so I worked with Darren Knob. He's an amazing. He's a French performer. He was also he had like a role in the Jason Statham in Expandables 4, I think. He has like a yeah, so he's a great performer. So every time actually I get to learn from him, it's like I'm always super excited, and from his team and his brother. Also, they work together. He's a great as well. So even on a Working Man, they taught me a lot of things because there's so many people who've been in the industry for so long and they're constantly working, going from one project to the other. So when I get to work with these amazing people, I'm like a sponge. Just teach me everything. I'm like a humble student forever in FMA, in stunt work, in acting.
That's awesome. So I have a short list of questions. So one, uh, and this is particular to FMA. Some of these are cultural, but some of these are also just like we're just going to go off the list. So one, as a forever student, somebody who is so hungry, so dedicated, what do you believe are some of the greatest strengths within the FMA community?
Their resilience, their commitment to the art, and the hunger to constantly learn new techniques without giving up the basics that they learned from the very beginning. Does that answer the question?
Sure. No, that's great. So another one. Conversely, what are some of the greatest challenges of the FMA community, and what will you suggest to fix them, or in your case, how are you changing them from your own sphere of influence?
Oh, that's a tricky one. It's a difficult one because I wish that FMA community were more connected in terms of we would we wouldn't be so divided by techniques or having those online conversations. Which technique is better? I'm not a fan of that because I feel like we should be more united and understand all of the styles and what do they bring to the table rather than arguing whose master is the best or whose techniques are better, because at the end of the day is sometimes it's not even a style, is the person who's actually doing those moves. So you can have, I don't know, the best style, which doesn't really exist, I think. It's a combination of everything. But it really depends on the person who's practicing those moves. So I wish that people were more open-minded and connect all the FMA styles, because there's so many different islands in Philippines. So different this and style depends also on the island you are in and the community you are in, because the knowledge was passed on. And which was really lovely that you mentioned about Doce Pares, because they actually initiate 12 different masters, the sorry, not 12, but like the 12 pairs, like the different masters came together and then they tried to bring their knowledge. So that's why I love the Taparis, because they kind of propagating it that everyone's system is good. It's just what can you take it? You have, you never take it from the system. You can add to it, but don't take it away and say, oh, it doesn't work, basically. And I think in terms of me, I always try to remember people whenever I have a conversation that we should be uniting the art rather than trying to think, oh, now I want to be a master and then everyone has to follow me. It's like respecting the people that came before us, who put all the knowledge, who put endless amounts of hours into making this art alive, and who had like death fights, to even, there was crazy things were happening in the 80s and 70s in the Philippines, with Arnis. So I wish that we all be more open-minded and find to unite the FMA, and then we can train together and without competing whose techniques are better. We're just there to take from each other and give each other as much as I can.
That's a beautiful answer. Yeah, that's great. But speaking of the nature of tribalism, and just like the different styles out there, for one, if you had an opportunity to train with one currently active grandmaster or just instructor out there, who would you train with, and or what style would you like to explore next if you had the opportunity?
Oh, wow, this is a very you giving me very tricky questions. I don't think so. I could even say which master in particular. I would be so humbled to train with any of them. Just imagine this for me doesn't really, like I said, this the style doesn't really matter. I just wanna get those nuggets of knowledge from the person who is way older than me and they had this lifelong passion of FMA and they learned so many things because sometimes even them correcting your basic techniques, it can actually change the flow of your movement so much. Um, okay, so other style, gosh, it's a tricky. Wow, it's a very maybe Berlin to walk just because I love how fast they are in the close quarter, how they're able to evade and disarm and block. It's just beautiful. So
Yeah, Balintawak is. I came late to it, especially coming from a Kali background, so the very like into Santo-ish, PTK-ish, so very flowy, long strikes. But yeah, Balintawak, I mean, because Bobby is a boxer, I mean, that translates and makes sense to me. But also like that dynamic snap. It's very great for performative aspects, but it's also like one of those foundational FMA systems that everybody should experience.
mhm.
And also learning from Bobby is that's another level. The old man can still hit, and one should always embrace the pain. I've had several occasions where he has smacked me with love, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, the cool thing also being based out of Cebu, with your travels back, like that is the home of Balintawak, so there's great opportunities there.
Yeah, so like I said, I would be more than happy to train with all of the masters, and of course Doce Pares. I love Doce Pares, so I always love training with Doce Pares crew. But Berlin to walk one day, I would like to get my butt kicked and see how that feels and and challenge yourself in that kind of situation. It's just beautiful to watch. When I watched um, the GMs like work, it's like amazing, amazing. How can you move like at this speed, at this age? It's just beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I have this live stream on Instagram. I don't know if I could show it on here, but Wego Total International and Wego Total USA. This is the full contact MMA Filipino martial arts combat sports arena. And so like with them, they just said on here that they have an open invite for anybody in Doce Pares and yourself to go participate in their events and also just that outreach. And I also believe that Wigo Toto is based also in Cebu. So I could be wrong, but I had them on the show a couple of weeks ago, and yeah, that's a really cool space to explore because you get to see like that overall like full contact expression of FMA. So yeah, and it's really cool to see that progression where FMA is at because I know when uh, I was competing, like for one for forms, especially during the NASCA and ISKF days back in the early 2000s, like I was one of the only people doing FMA, these sport karate tournaments for performative aspects. But I also wish like seeing the combative aspect, like being involved in like PCAF and WACAF and Wigo Toro. I wish that stuff was around when I was still fighting because that would have been a whole
Mhm.
other journey to explore.
Definitely. Oh, and first of all, thank you for no, I can't see the comments, but I will be, like I mentioned to Kurt before, I'll be most likely in Philippines for work in November, so I'll be quite busy working. But it's nice with social media we can get in touch, and if I have like a evening or like a few hours free, I would love to connect with the other FMA practitioners and train or be trained by you. I'm always looking forward to anything FMA.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so here's another one about training in the Philippines. For one, what have been your experiences as a foreigner training in the Philippines, and on top of all that, traveling and being a woman practitioner in the Philippines. Can you speak on that? I know you've talked a little bit about it, but is there any particular stories or incidents you like to talk about?
What I really find difficult in Philippines is the heat, is that tropical heat. Oh my goodness. I couldn't even, because this year when I went, we were training. We went to the headquarters in Cebu, and then I went to train with the Arnis team. They were training in one of their outdoors. It's like a sports complex. And of course, it's very hot. I was sweating so much I couldn't even twirl. My hand was sweating out of control. So I thought I might knock someone out just by accident dropping the stick. So I think this is the hardest challenge. And so what I really liked is just going through the technique. So in a HQ, it's just practicing the same thing over and over again, like angle one, like a striking disarm until I actually get it properly. Because like you can do it. How to say, you can do it, just like you can do it, but then the thing is the person not even holding it properly, so not even disarming, you're just doing the motion and you don't even know if the technique applies or not. And then there's actually really disarming someone when they actually hold it properly, and then you know it works or not. So I really love that repetition aspect, because that's how I've been taught. It's through repetition that you learn to be better, to be good at what you do. And I just really loved training with Trixie, because she was so inspirational, and it's amazing to see. And there was like other females. They're younger than me, but the amount of work they put in, I was just so inspirational. And they're after school, numerous hours, just there, just training over and over the same techniques, because we were preparing for the Arnis competition. So they were doing the forms, and just see them just going through it over and over again, just practicing. It was just an amazing experience. And then I was training with like some other people, just like it's the same in a sports complex, like in the morning, and everyone just seemed to know our knees. And then just to see them flowing differently than maybe how I flow, and showing like different stuff, is just great. So you always try to be like, oh, this is nice. I might just try to copy this when I practice it myself. So, and my experience, I guess, as a foreigner, I don't know, maybe I'm just lucky, because I have a great experience, because everyone was very supportive. First of all, like I said, I was struggling physically of that heat. So they were supportive, and they're allowing me to sit down when they feel like I'm about to faint. um, and they're very supportive, very encouraging, and for them to even teach me new things, because people can be selfish and be like, I don't want to teach you, and that's perfectly fine, isn't it? Why would they teach me their tricks and their techniques when they don't know you really well? So I was very grateful for them to share what they know. And when I came back to UK, I was very inspired by them. And now, even if I don't have time, I'm very busy working, I try even 5-10 minutes, just do a bit of twirling, at least a little bit something, if you can't dedicate, let's say, like 2 hours of training every day. Because life is real. We have to pay the bills and go to work, and can be exhausting. But as long as you dedicate a bit of time, small progress is better than no progress at all. So I think that's what, seeing the dedication, that's what really reminded me of.
That's yeah. I mean, it's the 5 minutes a day. I mean, that built up over time versus the hours we spend on our phone. So yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, talk about the Philippines. Like, I am the worst Filipino. So I grew up in Lancaster, so the Death Valley, so it's really, really hot. And then I was stationed in the South in places like Georgia, Texas, Arkansas, places like that. So it's hot and humid, and I hate that. And now I live in Alaska. So like I am trying to mentally prepare myself to go back to the Philippines and sweltering humidity and heat, but they'll be coming home. But yeah, that is a challenge that I'm looking that I'm going to address when I get there.
But,
So yeah,
but at least you've been exposed to kind of heat, so you've been living in a kind of hot country for some time. So I feel like you're
yeah.
probably gonna adapt a bit quicker. In Philippines, I even got a heat stroke.
Oh
I literally
no.
had a few days where I was completely out, and I wasn't worried that I got a heat stroke. I was worried that I can't train. This is
Yeah.
why my only concern was like, oh, I'm wasting my time being sick in bed. But I think next time if I go, I'll be more prepped.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I need to prep myself more.
Lots and lots of electrolytes.
Yes, exactly.
Lots of water. Okay, so just to be cognizant of your time, because it should be what, 6 o'clock nearly. They're locally for you. I don't know how much time we got. So
Yes, 10 to 6. So I guess I have a class actually
oh,
at 7. So I have a bit of time, so we can still
okay,
chat a little
okay.
bit. Yeah.
So let's go down this list then. Okay, so this is a cultural question that a variation of it I ask as often as I can with my guests because this podcast, amongst many things, of celebrating people and telling FMA stories and just bullshitting, there is the research that I do for my degree. So one of them, and it talked about culture and the fact that dealing with culture being an ever evolving thing where you have preservation of the past, currently living in today, and then creating something new, that innovation, creating something new and beautiful with the respect of what was and what is, and stripping away that trauma. So with that preamble, FMA is a way to heal generational trauma brought on by colonization, genocide, cultural suppression, and exploitation. The question being is, what ways have you, as a non-Filipino, uh, you helped heal that process or address that issue?
Address that issue in terms like for other Filipinos or like more for Filipinos, right? Help them
Uh,
to.
a- as your experience as a non-Filipino addressing those things of dealing with like that whole cultural identity, I'll call it, for a lot of Filipinos, especially like Filipinos raised outside of the Philippines, disconnected from culture, who there's a bit of resentment sometimes, misguided, but it's there. And there's a little bit of resentment that goes toward people who are not ethnically Filipino, who end up being uh, inst- uh, knowledge bearers and who are excited and love the thing, but there is that like disconnect between like the ethnic Filipino who is just mad at everything. And so by extension, they're mad at people who are not Filipino who have this sacred knowledge. So how would you address that situation to help build that bridge and help them grow, or and also help yourself grow?
Hmm. It's a great question. Um, I think what I always say to them is, coming from Lithuania, we never had a national martial arts sport. We don't have a our national sport is basketball. We don't have something like a martial art. So I always remind them how lucky they are to actually consider this their country's national sport and how blessed they are to have the whole system that's been worked on by many, many people, throughout centuries. And if you go back to the history, how the Spanish colonized Filipinos and they hid the whole martial art, with the sticks. I always remind them that they have to look at the blessings rather than thinking, oh wow, some other Westerners are coming in again and trying to take our knowledge. I almost feel like because there's lots of Europeans who did lots of damage to Filipinos, like burned libraries and lots of knowledge actually being taken away. I now feel almost the least they can do is help the Filipinos. Not like they're taking away from them. Of course, there's different kind of people. It's like there's good people and there's bad people everywhere in the world, right? But as long as there's people having the good intentions and almost giving it back to the culture, giving back to the martial art that they love, so maybe I always try to explain it from that place. I'm not there competing, with other Filipino women. I'm there to celebrate it with them and show them how lucky they are to have such an amazing art and just remind them, you warriors by nature. So when you watch those little, I think this is what I even getting goosebumps now. When I was in Philippines and I saw those little girls, the it's just like in their blood, it's in their blood. That's why they can if there would be the moves, if the master shows the same moves to like me and the other like Filipino girl, but probably she's even younger, could be like 5'8", she probably gonna learn it better. I just almost feel like it's in her blood, it's in her system. And I never look at it that way, like, oh yeah, why she's like learning it quicker. And I'm like, no, this is you, this is who you are, this is your culture. And how we touched up on like how Lithuanian, we had like that trauma response, and like my grandmother's just like, trying to keep as much food as they can. It's like it comes from generation to generation. Certain things are passed on, and I feel like for Filipinos, it's that warrior spirit. It's passed on. Sometimes they suppress it, but it's still in there. So even in our dojo, a lot of Filipinos come because they want to reconnect to their roots, which is so great. And on the same note, I try to reconnect to my roots, which is Baltic, but I can't reconnect to martial arts ways, unfortunately. So I try to reconnect in a different ways, because as I'm getting older, and probably like some teenagers listen to this talk, they're gonna be like, this is extremely boring. But you're trying to reconnect to your roots and understand the certain patterns, or even they said that there's a few articles and research done that sometimes your thoughts is not even your thoughts, it's been passed on through generations and generations. So certain why you react a certain way this way, it's not even you. Sometimes it's a learned habit that's been passed on to you. So I feel like the same with Filipinos. It's just there. Us Westerners, I guess we are sad we don't have such a martial art. So we are there to celebrate it with you and to help you in any way we can. And there's definitely, in terms of like for me and my community that we train with, there's definitely no competition. It's just admiration to what people can do. But in terms of FMA,
That's a beautiful answer, and this is why it's a difficult question, but I get so many great answers from everybody. So yeah, that's a beautiful answer, because there's a common theme about celebrating the experience of martial arts, celebrating the culture of which it comes from, and giving back to that. Because one of the things talking about to this generation that is going through, I call it the FIDM, it's the Filipino the Phil diasporic and Digipino decolonization mindset. It's such a long title, but point being is there's a certain age and a certain educational privilege group, very Burkean, that in the attempt to re-indigenize, to decolonize, there is this misguided anger that comes about, and they're lashing out. And I mean, I've been there. A lot of Philam go through that. A lot of Filipinos are disconnected from culture, go through that process. Hopefully they make it out. I mean, this is the point of like the purpose of like one, this podcast, two, what I'm doing with my degree field to help with that mentoring, to deprogram that generational trauma and that crab pot mentality, and being very grateful for Westerners. Because here's a fact: without the West, FMA would not have its prominence as today. It would not be in the common pop culture lexicon as it is today without the Westerners. So that's something for the Filipinos to just keep in mind about our history. And on top of all that, like, celebrate those who have this knowledge, because the worst thing that could happen, and we talk about suppression of culture, and as a result of colonization, is this idea of assimilation into a homogeneous society that is stripped of all the unique cultural features that are, like I said, unique, interesting, and therefore beautiful. So regardless of the source, it's great to have that, because the great travesty is it could have just disappeared entirely into obscurity. So when you have non-Filipino practitioners who are excited about the thing, that's great. So yeah, my hat's off to you.
thank you.
So, so with that, okay, talk another one on the list. What is the FMA scene, or just in general the martial arts scene in England? I have a couple of buddies over there, like Clive Turner, and who else is over there? Clive is a big one that comes to mind. I'll pop up with others, but what's the FMA scene or in martial arts scene like there?
So I think that FMA is also like in UK, they're getting more popular. I can see more people actually practicing, like on social media, all those hashtags, people buy more sticks and they're trying to to practice. There's a different styles because this there's a few clubs in London. There's some up north, and we have like these organizations like GSBA. We have now World Sport Arnis who are trying to kind of bring all the practitioners together. So I think we're getting there, like in terms of uniting and practicing and teaching. It's the same like in a club here at the Hybrid FMA. We will get like other people from other clubs if they like in London to come down. So everyone's always very welcome to come and train. It's not like, sometimes like before maybe it would be like, oh, you can't train with our club if you're with like another club, and all that kind of betrayal feeling. Thanks God it doesn't really exist. Maybe if someone feels it that way, they don't really show it. Or I'll just try and not to surround myself with people who are negative or who have like that mentality of divide and conquer. So I just try to be with people who are open-minded, enjoying the martial art, and they are there for the purpose of becoming better and making other people's lives better, in whatever way that might come across.
That's
That was like
cool.
a very long answer, but
No, it's great. Yeah, so like other FMA practitioners that I know are in England. There's Tom Pena. I think he's in London. There's Harry Flexman. He goes by the Fight Dad. I forget where he is at in England. He's got an Isanto blend, and of course my good friend Clive Turner. I've known him for years. Never met him, but I've known him through the internet space. But he's a PTK guy. Plus he's got a bunch of other stuff. He's an OG of martial arts in England. He's in, I think, South Sussex. So.
And then there's also John Harvey, who actually organized the WSA. So yeah, there's a few good guys who are trying to keep it up and, and promote the martial arts. And of course, like Armour, he gets involved with like a lot of like Barrio Fiesta, like those community events where he tries to propagate Filipino martial arts. And we're actually having a Barrio Fiesta event coming up this Sunday where we're just gonna have like a stand, try to talk with people, like other Filipinos, and be like, oh, hey, come on in. There's a stick, try it, and on the spot. So yeah.
Yeah, those Filipino festivals that's another level. For one, you're eating, because the best part of FMA is not necessarily the training, it's the karaoke and the food afterwards. If you definitely can tell this is a good Filipino martial arts community based upon how big the plate is and the variety of what's available. So yeah, that's fun to participate in.
Yeah, definitely. And I never do karaoke. The only time they forced me to do karaoke was in the Philippines. I couldn't do it.
Rite of passage. So this is your school's page, correct? Here on Instagram?
Yes.
Sweet. Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then we have here, this is me and my friend actually trying to trying to mix up. So the task was, it's a stress that you have to do the double stick, and you have to make it different than you usually would do it. Okay, so think outside of the box. How would you do the movement differently? I mean, we were just having fun. My friend as well, she loves, she's an actress and she loves FMA, and yeah, she's great.
Yeah, this is cool. It has the elements of like the sabong, the cockfighting or the jumping, that visual. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Let's see, and yeah, let's just go. I mean, this is the point where let's go through some of the social media here, because it's important as when we get to talk about the people, we can also get to promote some stuff out here. So let's go to this. So here is your instructor page here at the school, correct? And are you still actively teaching at the school or getting in as much as you can?
Yeah, so I'm training and I'm teaching because I'm
Okay.
like a brown belt. Because from brown belt, you are asked to teach because it's
Yep.
part of the learning process. So before, like I said, I used to be very terrified, but now I
Yeah.
really enjoy teaching. I genuinely enjoy, and I'm kind of excited. Okay, whoever needs what, I'm just there to teach. Try to cater as much as I can to them. So I love it.
What is your favorite part as a new instructor who's going through this process? Whether it's a drill or or a a process of that?
It's when you give people a task and they find it very difficult, and then but eventually they learn it. So by the end of the
Hmm.
class, you can see frustration in their face, and then you find you catering to how to their learning abilities. Some people maybe like more visually, they learn by watching. Other ones maybe by certain words that you use, and
Hmm.
kind of cracking the people and finding, okay, what do they need particularly, and then them actually mastering by the end of the class. Like learning the move that they need to do. This is like my favorite part, and I
Okay.
just like the forms. I don't
Yeah.
know, just forms is just different kind of level.
I mean, it's the whole performative aspect,
Yeah,
which
it's
I mean,
fun.
given what you do for a living, that makes total sense. So, in the same with teaching, what is the major challenge that you face as an instructor?
Mm, I guess the challenge comes from myself.
Hmm.
I feel like I'm hard on myself because I feel like I have to be good if I want to teach.
Hmm.
And I feel like sometimes it's like, okay, if I'm teaching, and then you have to humble your teaching, and then maybe tomorrow you're coming in and then you're being taught, you're just being humble enough. And I always ask as many questions as I can. And this is a small detail, but like, okay, is this like 45 or degrees, or this is actually like angle 11, like straight down? I always try to ask many questions because as teacher you're being asked a lot,
Hmm.
and I want to make sure when I'm being asked I can answer. Or if I don't know the answer, maybe straight away, I'll be like, I'm really sorry. I think it's this way, but I'm going to come back to you with 100% knowledge. So I always try to keep myself like that.
Oh, cool. Yeah, just going through a couple other things. Here's your IMDb if people want to check out your list. Oh, you're involved with Barbie. Talk about like a talk about an adventure story. I mean, that was a fun movie to watch.
Yeah, it was great. Well, no, this one was really kind of random.
Yeah.
I do this thing. I do modeling, and I do like modeling like commercial, and sometimes I do for hands. And
Hmm.
my agent contacted me like, "Oh, are you available on those dates? Just
Yeah.
to hand model." And I went. It was the Warner Brothers, and then I'm sitting in a chair, and I'm
Hmm.
like, "Why is this Margot Robbie's pictures everywhere?" And then so basically, they got me to double Margot Robbie as a picture double.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
so I didn't really do like action for her. I
Hmm.
was like doubling her. So when the whole unit went to LA to finish up the scenes, the second unit stayed in Leaves and Studios, and I just got to sit in her car, the Barbie car, and then do all the and like film a few scenes where she's like picking up the pancakes and stuff. The whole
Yeah.
outfit it was really cool to actually be a Barbie for a few days.
A
So yes, not really like action related, but it was a great experience.
kick ass Barbie. That we were yeah. That's awesome. And again, here's your Facebook page. Hit follow for there, and yeah, this is
It's
again.
like,
I oh, go ahead.
no, no, you say it.
Oh, I was just saying, I love talking to stunt people because they bring such a fun energy that's to the FMA space because there's a lot of just like the humdrum, especially on the social media space of like, I'm the best guy because I have to promote my system, my style, and my organization because of I'm a character online and I need to make money, which I mean that is the purest reason to promote oneself. Yes, to make a living. Hats off of anybody who's got to go through that hustle because I've been there, done that. But it takes away some of like the pure authenticity and fun factor as a FMA practitioner, especially as an instructor, of just you're doing it because you like to do it, and again, as a professional performer of martial arts, like it brings a whole different dynamic to the space because you're not worrying about the combat efficiency, not worrying about having to fight tonight, and also you don't necessarily have to put bread on the table to pay the bills for a studio. So,
Yeah, and it's like, the social media space is such a tricky thing because you can really get consumed by it because you start
mhm.
worrying about the likes and view numbers and comments. I always say to myself whenever I have to like make a decision what I want to do, with my life moving forward, I always remind myself I want to sleep well at night. It doesn't mean in terms of, oh, it's not stress. Stress is a different thing, because if you care about something, you naturally worry and you might stress. But in terms of, I always try to do the right thing. So, as long as you stay true to yourself and you don't talk crap about other people, because it sits in your psyche. You want it or not, you might pretend like you're a tough man or a woman, but it's still sitting there somewhere. It's like, it's like mind, body, spirit. It's like everything is connected. So whatever is not released, I feel like it's sitting there is gonna somehow leave. You have to release it somehow. So I always live my life wishing the best for others, and then just focusing on yourself and doing the right thing. So I don't want to get consumed by counts or other people's opinions, because people's opinions change very quickly. One day they love you, the next day they hate you, and I don't want my life to depend purely on that. That's why Warren Buffett said, don't keep all your eggs in one basket. I mean, some people say, oh yeah, don't have a plan B because it's going to distract you from plan A. I get it. But sometimes it's like you don't want to, I'm kind of sticking to Warren Buffett, don't keep your eggs in one basket, okay? It's like FMA, there's a Stunt, there's acting, and I just found a nice way everything connects together. So if one element doesn't work, it's okay. I have all the other things to fall back on, in the way that I will never lose who I truly am.
That's cool. That's a great answer. Speaking of FMA online, as social media people, what would be your recommendations for somebody getting into the social media space as a martial artist? What are some of the things you would recommend them to do, not to do, or just general lessons learned?
Oh, I'm not even sure if I'm the best person to ask this, actually, because I'm not that active on social media as other people are. But
You put stuff out, so I mean you're active enough. So
okay, that's fair enough. I guess just stay true to yourself, and find the reason why you're doing social media as a martial artist. You have to really say to yourself, are you doing it for because you want to be influencer and make money out of it? Or are you just kind of doing it because you want to record your journey and find like-minded people? That's like two very different things, because if you want to be a hardcore influencer in terms of martial arts world, that means you have to follow trends, you have to use the music that's trending and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying you can't do that. You can, but as long as you know it for yourself, because at the end of the day, you don't want to be training martial arts just for the sake of putting content out there and not actually getting to train anything, because you're so preoccupied with camera angles and looking good and looking certain way, where you forget to train. So yeah, just decide why you want to do social media. If you're doing it for profit or you're just doing it for yourself. If later you decide you want to do it for profit, there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people make a good living out of it. This is an amazing thing. Just do what's right for you and just have fun with it. And make sure you have a day off from social media.
yeah, yeah, got to rejuvenate from
Yes,
this little anxiety device or
definitely.
dopamine robbing device. So yeah, my buddy Paulo Rubio, commonly known as GN, one of his best recommendations is that aspect of raw, courageous authenticity. And so putting content out there of, yeah, we like the curated stuff, we like the stuff that's clean, especially for a performer. But and also like, we talked about this beforehand about the courage of just putting out raw stuff of your messy process, mistakes and blemishes and everything. So yeah, being able to navigate that as a social media person, that's also interesting. So yeah.
No, I totally agree. And then sometimes I'm guilty of that. I think just because coming from the performer's side, like you mentioned, because your profile gets watched by your potential employer, So I think sometimes that's why you're conscious. But if you go to Harvard FMA website, there's lots of videos of me in a messy bun, sweat, and all the crazy stuff that you do when you are training, making mistakes. So there's kind of a balance of both, actually.
I mean, it proved, like I said, that raw authenticity, because you can tell an individual who puts in their work based upon the level of sweat and bruises of blood that they're going through and the willingness to share that, because it's the process that we celebrate, not necessarily the end product. Um, so that is really cool. And honestly, talk about like the potential job seeker, like in my case with the rubber chicken, like I'm not really looking for a job. I'm just having fun with this stuff. So the rules that I go by for social media is the what is the why? What's the attempt here? Am I inspiring? Am I entertaining? Or am I educating? And hopefully I can do all of that at the same take. And yeah, and however many times I can throw a rubber chicken into the process as well. So there's that.
That's amazing. I watch your podcast, and it's just very interesting that all the people you get on the show, they're very interesting, and there's always something to take, and it's always interesting to listen to other people's opinions, because you don't want to get so stuck up in your own thinking that you forget to listen to other people, because you don't know what you don't know, isn't it? It's by listening you get to learn about the world and yourself.
Yeah, it's the to fear is based in ignorance, and to remove fear and ignorance, one must be educated and go learn, and also have that bravery, that courage to break down those walls and find commonality. So again, the way that happens is through storytelling and conversations, and find those exchanges, regardless if they're as the same belief system or not. I mean, being able to have that respectful dialogue of disagreement and agreement is important, because we get too much. There's the risk of the echo chamber of like we're all surrounded by everybody and we are who we associate with, and we don't have that outside opinion to challenge our thoughts and challenge our belief systems, and also just educate. But also, like, there's this space of like people are so intentionally looking for a fight and not actually doing it or not conversing with people who believe differently than they are, for the sake of growth and learning. And also, as a result of it, storytelling and taking the time to get to know a person, you get to build compassion and empathy, because that's how you get to know who they are, where they come from, and what makes them them, their why. So yeah, that's the cool part about this podcast. Aside from the fact that I live way out here in Alaska, the ass end of the Kenai Peninsula, um, being isolated like this, I don't get to touch hands and have and share meals with a lot of my fellow FMAers out there. So I mean, gives me an excuse.
Yeah, definitely. No, you're doing a great job. You're connecting all the FMA practitioners around the world. This is like, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Cool.
Who knows? Maybe one day we're gonna have a live networking event organized by you. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. At least, I mean, in the process of it, I get to document it, so that'll be
Yeah.
it's fun. So speaking of which, who are some FMA practitioners that you would like to see, regardless of rank or position? Who are some of the people that you find valuable to tell stories?
Um, you should, it's the Trixie, which I mentioned her name quite a few times. She's
Hmm.
amazing. She started, her father's a coach, and she started learning FMA at a very young age. And
Awesome.
she is 20 something, and she's a phenomenal performance, and she's a phenomenal coach. So definitely her is like, and then of course like Emma Alexander, because I've been trained by him. He taught me so much of everything that I know. So he's a great person, and he's Cebuano. He was born in Philippines, grew up in England, so he has an interesting story as well. And then Master Gerald Cañete, the Doce Pares from Doce Pares. He has so many interesting stories to tell. So I mean, the list is long. There's so many great people.
Oh, cool. Well, I mean, I'm more than happy to have a conversation with them, because, yeah, it's fun for me and also educational for everybody else. So, yeah, I would love to have them on the show. It's an open invite in general. And it's an open invite. You're always welcome to come back, because, again, it's always this. It's fun to see what people are doing and get that checkup. And also there's in a 2.5 hour podcast, there's only so much we can cover. So, like, in some cases, I've ran into like we're going to talk about a biography, but we never get to the biography. We're going to talk about FMA. We don't actually talk about FMA, or we just end up in this like bird trail of like getting stuck on like law enforcement tactics and stuff. So like this podcast, like having people come back and actually talk about new stuff, that's fun. It's fun for me. And again, it gives me an opportunity to document and celebrate those who are in the community and moving forward. So being cognizant of your time though, what would you say to the FMA community moving forward as we try to embrace each other and become better? What would you like to say to that in closing?
I think just we are, no one knows everything.
Hmm.
So as long as we stay humble and stay open and we are willing to teach one another, I think that will be the way forward for the FMA to survive and strive for years to come. I
I,
think, yeah, just that. I think because the art won't survive unless the people will train and will they pass their knowledge. So us as a practitioners, our duty is to pass the information to the other people that want to train and learn more about the FMA.
awesome. Actually, in a follow up question, we'll call this the last one.
Mhm.
What would you tell a young female martial artist who's coming into this space? What would be some words of inspiration and wisdom that you would like to pass on to them?
Just stay true to yourself and do not allow anyone to push you off your track. Doesn't matter what other people think, it matters what you think of yourself. And by embracing Filipino martial arts, you will learn more of who you are. So just embrace it and enjoy the ride.
Awesome. What a great end to this, and we'll close with that. Thank you for hanging out with me. When I do my outro, I'll just have you just hang out in the lobby. People
Mhm.
tend to like disappear, like, well, just hang out after I get to the outro so I can do an AAR. But in the meantime, thank you for spending so much time with me. And to steal a phrase from my senior brother Jeff Johnsgard, thank you for the gift of your time and your wisdom and your experiences.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a fun experience to chat with you and learn more about yourself and hear what you have to say. So thank you very much.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to drop you down, hang out in the lobby. Don't go anywhere. I'll do my outro and we'll go from there.
All
All
right.
right.
See you soon.
See you
Bye.
soon. All right. All right, folks. 2.5 hours, early morning, plenty of coffee. But honestly, this is one of my favorite things to do is just sit here and chat with FMAers because you people are fun. That's why I'm part of this journey. That's why I'm part of this community. So, if anybody wants to come on the show or has a recommendation for the show, go ahead and reach out to me. I'm more than happy to have you on here because it's just fun for me. On top of all that, a big shout out and thank you for all of you for being here and supporting the show. Make sure to like, subscribe, and do all like the marketing things for me because I'm awful at it. But yeah, in the meantime, I don't know who I have coming up. Other points of business. GM Bobby's got World Camp in the Philippines, open registration. That's in November. He also has the annual West Coast Camp in Marysville, Washington, which I'm going to miss this year. Bummer, but it's because I'm going to the Philippines. And last, we have Dr. Kelly Warden's Water and Steel Camp there in Gig Harbor in August. So August 15th through the 17th. It's going to be the last camp because he's getting up there. And I mean, it's 45 years, but I'll be there. Cooper will be there. So open registration and we'll catch you later. In the meantime, everybody have an awesome rest of their day. Thanks for hanging out. And yeah, bye.